Code of Vengeance is the umbrella title for a series of American television programs produced by Universal Television that aired on NBC in 1985 and 1986. Charles Taylor stars as David Dalton, a Vietnam veteran who has become a drifter, traveling across the United States in a camper van with only his dog for company. Dalton gets involved in the personal lives of the people he meets and uses his fighting skills to help them win justice. The Dalton character was created for All That Glitters, a planned spin-off series from Knight Rider, and a backdoor pilot aired as a second season episode of that series in 1984. The character, originally a suave government agent, was retooled as a lone drifter for a new pilot, which aired as the television movie Code of Vengeance, to surprise ratings success in June 1985. A subsequent series, to be called Dalton, was ordered by NBC for mid-season. Then production was cancelled after just 4 episodes were completed. These aired in the summer of 1986 as a television movie titled Dalton Code of Vengeance 2 and as a part of a fill-in series called Dalton's Code of Vengeance Origins. The David Dalton character was originally created by writer Robert Foster and executive producer Glenn A. Lasson for a proposed series titled All That Glitters. The show's 2-hour backdoor pilot aired on April 8, 1984, as a special double-length episode of Knight Rider titled Mouth of the Snake. The production featured Charles Taylor as David Dalton, an action-oriented government agent, and Joanna Pettit as Joanna Street John, the widow of a murdered lawyer, fighting crime and accepting secret missions from Archibald Hendley, played by George Murdoch, on behalf of the United States Department of Justice. In this pilot episode, Dalton and St. John work with Knight Rider stars Michael Knight, David Hasselhoff, in Kit, voice of William Daniels, to locate Eduardo O'Brien, Pedro Armendariz, Jr., a master criminal who has stolen a prototype rocket launcher. This backdoor pilot was written by Robert Gilmer and Robert Foster, directed by Winrick Kolber, and produced by Robert Gilmer, Gian Grimaldi, and Tom Green. Cinematography was handled by H. John Penner with art direction by Russell Smith and music by Don Peake. Both Glenn A. Lasson and Robert Foster were credited as executive producers on the project, noting the limited roles of Michael and Kit in the episode. The authors of Knight Rider Legacy state that many fans consider this to be one of the worst episodes of Knight Rider ever produced during its 4-year run, and that it posted a season low in the Nielsen ratings, feeling the format was too similar to Cover Up, a show Larson had created for CBS that began airing in September 1984. NBC declined to pick up All That Glitters as a series. Second pilot. NBC commissioned a second pilot starring Charles Taylor, Code of Vengeance, for the 1985 pilot season. The new pilot reimagined David Dalton as a flashback-prone Vietnam veteran who drifts across the country, encountering people in trouble, and helping them to find justice with his unique fighting skills. The physical agility, acrobatic skill, and martial arts expertise that Dalton displayed in Mouth of the Snake was toned down to a simpler, more violent fighting style. The reviewer for the Associated Press described Dalton as a modern version of Shane that's also like Highway to Heaven, but with Dalton using his fists rather than good deeds to solve problems. Dalton travels from place to place in a camper van with only his German Shepherd named Wichita for company. In this second pilot, Dalton is a mysterious stranger who arrives in a small town in Arizona where he meets Nadine Flowers, a young mother, played by Aaron Gray, her son A.J. Chad Allen, and her mother Iona Lenka Peterson. Nadine hires Dalton to complete an addition to her house left undone after her brother disappeared. while hunting. When the brother turns up dead under suspicious circumstances, Dalton investigates, then sets out to avenge the brother's murder. This act of justice entangles him in a conflict between warring rival drug smugglers and gun runners along the border between Arizona and Mexico. Other prominent cast members included Charles Haid as Jim Blanton, Keenan Wynn as Willis, Randall Tex Cobb as Willard Singleton, and Joe Dorsey as Chief Milford Carsworth. In a nod to the show's origins, Keenan Wynn's character is shown watching a Knight Rider episode, with Kit's voice clearly audible, as armed thugs surround his home. The teleplay was written by Robert Foster, with Duke Callahan and Thomas Del Ruth splitting cinematography duties under director Rick Rosenthal. Robert Foster served as executive producer, and the pilot was produced by Universal Television. NBC also declined to pick up this pilot as a series and shelved the film to be burned off during the summer of 1985. The pilot was eventually aired on June 30, 1985, as the NBC Sunday night movie, opposite a new 2-hour special episode of Call to Glory starring Craig T. Nelson. Series, ordered for mid-season, promoted as being in the tradition of Rambo, and airing just weeks after Rambo: First Blood Part 2 was released to theaters. The Code of Vengeance telemovie was a surprise ratings success. Code of Vengeance tied an episode of the popular sitcom Family Ties as the second highest rated show of the week. Swayed by these numbers, NBC ordered 6 one-hour episodes as a mid-season replacement series. The October 1985 announcement noted that the new series was to be titled Dalton. The series, described by its lead actor as having 2 stars, the landscape and Dalton, began filming in several locations across the United States. While the plan was to film 2 episodes in each location, the production was troubled by weather as flash flooding delayed filming in Houston and a hurricane hit while filming in New Orleans. Shut down. Originally slated for a January 1986 debut, Dalton struggled with script and production issues that delayed its debut indefinitely. Unhappy with what they had seen so far, NBC ordered a suspension of production in December 1985 after just 4 episodes had been filmed. Scheduled to resume filming in Los Angeles in January 1986 after a holiday break, the network instead ended production on Dalton entirely, and in early February ordered Universal Television to re-edit these 4 completed episodes into 2 feature-length movies. These Movie of the Week presentations were to be called Code of Vengeance 2 and Code of Vengeance 3. Movie of the Week. The first of these 2-hour presentations, now titled Dalton, Code of Vengeance 2, aired as the NBC Sunday night movie on Sunday, May 11, 1986, combining episodes written by Luther Murdoch and Aiken Woodruff. Dalton, Code of Vengeance 2 found Dalton traveling first to Houston, Texas, to help friend Jean Bennett, played by Karen Landry, locate her husband, his former commanding officer, Major Monty Bennett, Donnelly Rhodes, when he discovers that Major Bennett is now aiding the New Patriots, a conservative paramilitary group of Vietnam veterans bent on overthrowing the United States government. He sets off for the Florida Everglades to stop them. The New Patriots' plan is to commit acts of domestic terrorism while framing an Arab group for the atrocities, in the belief that this will allow them to seize control of the government they feel betrayed them in Vietnam. Ultimately, Dalton confronts his former commander in the swamp, and after a long and unexplained flashback sequence of combat in Vietnam, Dalton stops both his commander and the group's plans. This Universal Television movie was produced by Herman Miller, edited by Lawrence J. Valario, scored by Don Peake, and Jack Priestley was the cinematographer. Gary A. Lee handled art direction and, with creator Robert Foster no longer involved, Lew Shaw was the only credited executive producer. Direction of the combined feature edit of these two episodes, filmed on location in Houston, Texas, and Jacksonville, Florida, is credited pseudonymously to Alan Smithee. Other prominent roles in the movie included Ed Bruce as Sheriff Johnson, Alex Harvey as Sheriff Willoughby, Mitch Pileggi as Verbeck, Shannon Stein as Tib Bennett, Belinda J. Montgomery as Libby Holland, and William Sanderson as Bobby Fuller. Critical reaction to this iteration of the Dalton saga was sharp. Drew Featherston, reviewing the movie for Newsday, called it claptrap, and that action is all that this NBC stinker has to offer. Faye Zuckerman of the Gainesville Sun called Dalton Code of Vengeance to a plodder, complaining that this film insults its predecessor. Chicago Sun-Times reviewer Daniel Ruth gave Dalton Code of Vengeance 2 a half-star review, calling it revisionist, distasteful, and terrible television, deriding the film as poorly written, badly acted, sloppily directed and choppily edited. He called it another slap in the face of the men and women who went to Southeast Asia to do a dirty job and came home to even dirtier exploitation. Ruth concluded, the viewer's best code of vengeance would be to reject these films. Quote, Dalton Code of Vengeance 2 also failed to deliver the high ratings of its predecessor. Against stiff competition from the final installment of ABC's top-rated North and South Book 2 miniseries, the movie failed to crack the top 20 in that week's Nielsen ratings. Faced with critical and commercial failure, NBC scrapped plans to air Code of Vengeance 3 and the fate of the unseen episodes became uncertain. Replacement series. In the summer of 1986, NBC was doing quite well in the ratings with its Thursday night lineup, but was still experimenting on other nights. One such experiment was the anthology series The New Alfred Hitchcock Presents, featuring new stories introduced by colorized vintage footage of Alfred Hitchcock. After just one season on the network, the show was cancelled abruptly after the July 20, 1986 airing of two repeat episodes placed 55th for the week in the Nielsen ratings against fifth-rated Murder, She Wrote on CBS, needing an inexpensive replacement on short notice as a fill-in until the 1986-87 television season started in September. NBC began airing one-hour episodes of Dalton, retitled Dalton's Code of Vengeance, in a four-episode limited run beginning on July 27, 1986. The first one-hour episode of Dalton's Code of Vengeance to air was Rustlers Moon, one of the two previously unaired hours. Dalton is on his way to Houston when he meets a feisty rancher named Rhonda Jo, played by Susan Walden, and is forced to deal out his unique brand of justice against cattle rustlers trying to steal her prize bull and do her harm. Other prominent roles included Larry Drake as Jack Ferguson, Paul Carr as Elliot, Chris Douridas as Willie, and a special appearance by country music star Mickey Gillies himself. As with the previous presentation, this episode's direction was credited to Alan Smithee, with little notice of promotion. Advance critical reaction was scant. One reviewer noted that star Charles Taylor has the bod for an adventure hero, while another opined that he thought Knight Rider the A-Team or Jonathan of Highway to Heaven took care of these baddies on their series. The debut episode placed 51st for the week, just behind a rerun of Airwolf, with 7.3 ratings points in the Nielsen ratings. The following week, the time slot was filled by the special Motown Returns to the Apollo hosted by Bill Cosby. The original two-hour Code of Vengeance television movie was split into two one-hour segments and repeated in 2 parts as episodes of Dalton's Code of Vengeance. Part 1 aired on August 10, 1986, and Part 2 aired on August 17, 1986. The first part placed 48th for the week, rated just behind a rerun of The A-Team. The second part also placed 48th for the week with 8.1 ratings points and was seen in an estimated 7 million homes, just 1/5 of the 35 million that tuned in for this film's 1985 debut. The final airing of Dalton's Code of Vengeance was the final previously unaired hour, an episode titled The Last Holdout, which aired on August 24, 1986. Dalton arrives in New Orleans and finds himself the only hope for produce wholesaler Ray Beechett, played by Wandy Ward, and his wife Rose Beechett, Maureen Keddes, being pressured to sell their property by powerful real estate developer Johnson Lee. Jeff Jensen. Prominent guest roles included Barry Settles as Fante. This final episode placed 43rd for the week with 10.0 ratings points and a 19 ratings share. This rating was good enough to tie preseason National Football League games on both CBS and ABC, but not enough to make NBC consider reviving the Dalton character yet again. Video release. The double-length second season Knight Rider episode, Mouth of the Snake, the All That Glitters Backdoor pilot, was released on DVD in April 2005 by Universal Home Video as part of the Knight Rider Season 2 set. This episode had been previously released on VHS by Columbia House Home Video. As of March 2010, no plans have been announced to release Code of Vengeance in any format on DVD or Blu-ray. In other media, the novel Knight Rider, the 24-Karat Assassin, published in September 1984 by Target Books and credited to Glenn A. Lasson and Roger Hill, was an adaptation of the Mouth of the Snake episode. The back cover of the book names the adapted episode as All That Glitters, the working title for the episode and the name of the proposed series that would have featured the David Dalton character. As in the episode, Dalton and St. John are the principal characters, with Michael Knight and Kit making only token appearances. Of the 5 official English-language Knight Rider tie-in novels, the 24-Karat Assassin was one of 2 released in the United Kingdom that was never released in the United States. The novel was translated into German by Carla Blesgen and published by Bertelsmann in Germany in 1988 as Einhoch Karate Killer. See also Knight Rider franchise, Knight Rider 1982 TV series. Further reading. Lasson, Glenn A. Hill, Roger. September 1984. Knight Rider No. 4. The 24-Karat Assassin. London, UK. Target Books. ISBN 0-426-198360. Code of Vengeance at the Internet Movie Database. Code of Vengeance at TVGuide.com. 2012 Code of Vengeance movie.